like a bit of Downton Abbey, as of course did ITV. It was pure ratings gold for you guys, wasn't it?
Yeah, certainly was.
And drawing what Nikki Mendonça said yesterday from OND, a big, broad mass audience, which advertisers crave. We have Simon Daglish from ITV. Simon is the Deputy Managing Director of ITV's commercial division. Simon, welcome to the Connected TV World Summit. It's great to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you very much.
Dags, if I may call, because you're universally known as Dags in the industry. The theme of this session, indeed the entire event we have here, is transformation. Now, ITV has a transformation plan which was adopted in 2010. Tell us about that and tell us about the performance that that's actually delivered.
I was part of the new management team that came in 2010, and ITV had had a fairly troubled time up to that point. Its reliance on the advertising market had meant that its fortunes ebbed and flowed depending on how that particular area is doing. And Adam, our chief executive, and Archie, our chairman at the time, wanted to rebase the company. Not that the advertising world isn't extremely important, it is. For ITV, it's over £2 billion worth of revenue. But equally, we had a fledgling production business. And I'm sure you would have heard of this conference and other conferences about content being king. And the idea was to use our firepower to build up our content business, which we've now built up. The goal within 5 years is to have 50% of our revenue from our content, production and distribution.
This is ITV Studios.
ITV Studios, absolutely. Both here and in the States and in the Nordics. So have half our revenue from advertising and half our revenue from content. We're not quite there, but we're very, very nearly there.
It's just below 1%.
That's right.
Being there, isn't it? So you've done extremely well over that period of time.
Yeah, I suppose there's two ways to do that. One, you could lose loads of advertising revenue. You could naturally do that, but that wasn't our plan, and that isn't what we've done.
Now, we've heard here at the summit, Dags, from many people that the TV is either dying, if it's not dead completely, or it's going to die in 2030. That's the Reed Hastings view from Netflix. But I assume you take a very different view.
Yeah, look, whenever new technologies come onto the market, they seem to always be predicted to kill the old technologies, and it's just rubbish. I mean, you know, radio killed cinema, or cinema killed radio. TV killed cinema. I mean, it's just that it doesn't happen. What happens is the whole landscape changes. But if I can give you just some very, I don't want to number wang too much today, but just a couple of numbers. TV viewership in the UK last year had a 1% decline, 1%. Over the last 5 years, it's had a 5% increase. And that is not something that's dying. And I guess also that if you were to invent the perfect medium for a digital age, it would look a lot like telly. Because telly is portable, telly is audio, it's visual, it's dramatic, it communicates to us in a very, very human way. And most of the sort of digital newcomers are trying to emulate television. So I'd be very surprised if it died. Also, you know, one has to be careful. As a broadcaster, it's very easy to sit there and say, look, we're doing very well, it's lovely, it's fantastic. Order another bottle of Dom Perignon, sit on your yacht and drift away. That's not where we're at. We're very, very aware of the changing environment around us. We're very aware of how consumers are consuming our content, and that changes on an annual basis. I mean, one of the statistics that came to us last night, I don't know how many of you are aware of The Only Way of Essex, and whether any of you are fans of The Only Way of Essex, but it's broadcast on ITVB. It has about 300,000 live viewers, has over 1 million viewers online.
Amazing.
And 3 years ago, you could never have said that. No.
Take us through some of the digital parts of the transformation, because I know that Adam Crozier, your chief executive, said that ITV needs to get closer to digital audiences and also do something special for the advertisers as well, in terms of targeting maybe. But just take us through some of the digital parts, or the online parts.
Absolutely. And look, for us, digital offers a great opportunity. I mean, what we had is that in days gone by, when people were watching the telly, they were pretty well always doing something else. They could be doing the ironing, they could be eating their supper, they could be doing knitting. It doesn't matter, they've always done something else with the telly. So when second...
I was mostly doing the knitting, I think.
Well, yeah, so my father did his accounts. That's probably why it went bust. But so we have a natural human state of people able to do other things while watching the telly. And in a modern environment, what they started doing is second screening. Now, they could be second screening looking at websites, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, whilst watching the telly. And, you know, telly drives a lot of the Twitter conversation. Or they could, as we've looked at and experimented, is actually following the show. So we had an idea about, I suppose, 5 years ago to produce apps for the shows. Now, not all of them were successful. A lot of them weren't. But I'll give you an example of one, which was the X Factor app. Now, you're all probably aware of the X Factor. It's 8 years old now. And our app used to be obviously live when the show was on, give you more information about the show, give you more information about contestants. You could see extra footage, etc., etc. And it had sort of okay engagement. About 1 million downloads, about 250,000 people in the app at any one point. But what made the difference is when we moved voting into the app, and where the consumer could immediately change the dynamics of the show by voting. Now, we had 3 million downloads of that app. We had 700,000 people in that app at any one time. And this is a poor state of democracy in the UK, but we have more votes in that app than in the last general election.
Wow.
I know. So, if only Fleur East had been Prime Minister, she would have done a fantastic job. But, so the question there is, you know, what do we do with these people? How do we monetize them, to put it very frankly? So what we did is we came up with 2 products. One was a product called AdSync Plus, which is something we developed with Radian One, which is where they have access to our logs, our advertising logs, and so they can see exactly what ads paid out at exactly what time. They use their targeting and distribution to serve ads across the web, which are simultaneous to the ads that are on screen, and that's proved very successful. The other one is AdSync, which is our in-app advertiser. And what happens is that when the ad's shown on screen, so I'll use the example, Domino's, the pizza company. They did a 30-second ad in the middle of X Factor. And what we did was, on the second screen in the X Factor app, it showed a game. And the game was very, very simple. You tapped a pizza, and you had to tap a pizza, I think it was 100 times in 30 seconds. And if you did this tapping 100 times in 30 seconds, you got 3 buffalo wings with your next order. Now, you could order it straight off the app.
Wow.
They sold 34,000 pizzas in 30 seconds.
Wow.
I mean, that is the power that we now have when we have mass audiences with mass engagement, and we're able to commercialize that, which is really, really exciting. So, you know, people who say telly's dead and the new technology is going to over it, actually, it's the biggest enabler we've ever had.
Another part of the digital transformation part then has been the relaunch recently of what was called the ITV Player, now called the ITV Hub, on-demand and live stream programs. Take us through the ITV Hub strategy. Yeah, so, you know, I said earlier that, you know, if you were to invent the best medium for the modern age, it would be telly. Well, that's our view there as well. So, what we've said is that actually what our viewers want to be able to do is view telly wherever they want to, however they want to, in the easiest possible fashion. So one of the key things is when you come to the site, you'll see live telly is immediately up there. So it'll be ITV1, you just swipe, you can get ITV2. So it's just like changing the channels on the screen as you'd see it in your living room. But beyond that, obviously we have catch-up services. But we've also experimenting actually premiering shows on the hub, and that's a little bit like us using social media to do our critics' job. So we had Blackwater, which was a drama we put out last year. It was nearly the biggest drama of last year. Poldark slightly nudged ahead of it, but we produced Poldark as well, so we'll live with that. What we did is we put it onto the hub before it was broadcast, and allowed our users to see it and then share what they thought of it around the web. And I think that had a big impact on us being able to drive such a huge audience to what was a brilliant drama. Understanding and predicting what people are going to like more of then, there's again something else which has come out over the last day, and we have a session on this afternoon, is data. Where is ITV with its data strategy? Channel 4 is making a big play. I think it's more than 13 million registered users of Channel 4 services. BBC are moving way down this route as well. Where's ITV with a data strategy, and what's your view on data?
Yeah, so I'll give you positive and negative. One of the issues the advertising industry has, and I think it's a generic issue, is that when something new comes along, we all flood into it, and we overuse it. And I think data is a good case in point here. I believe currently we're using data rather like a drunk uses a lamppost to lean on rather to illuminate. Data is not the answer. It is part of the solution. And, you know, I hear lots of time, right, we're going to go fully programmatic, we're going to go, it's all going to be data. Not all data is good. And not all data gives you the answer. And I'll give you a rather poor example, so I apologise for this, but if you go onto the Office of National Statistics, you will see that there are roughly, I'll read these figures for you, roughly 10 million urinals in the UK. It's quite a lot. There are roughly 26 million adults in the UK. Let's say, 26 million adults over 18. Let's say those adults use the urinal 6 times a day. That gives you 108 million impressions a day. And dwell time's pretty good. I can guarantee there's no fraud. They're all blokes. Does that make it the best advertising medium? No, it doesn't. But the data would tell you it is. Yeah. And the point is that here, and that's a very extreme example, it's context, content, and data that is the answer. It's not one of those things. And I believe that's what TV does. You know, we will spend just over £1 billion on our content this year. We know the content, we know the context. So when we start overlaying the data, that's the dream bit. And there's 2 bits here. So there's our online, where we're doing very similar work to Channel 4. So effectively we have compulsory sign-on now. And we ask for 4 fields for registration, so name, email address, postcode, and date of birth. We then take that data back. We then mix that with other data, known data, so mosaic data, other understanding of the audiences, and we use that for targeting. Now, we're fairly nascent at the moment, but I'll read you some of the results from some of that targeting in the online environment. Excuse me, I can just turn my notes. I can't remember all the figures. But using the mosaic data, we saw ad awareness increase by 71%. Message recall in a campaign increased by 150%. Ad recognition by 14%. Now, these are enormously uplifting figures, and that's great. The counter to that is that is very good for online targeting. The other thing that broadcast media does, which is in the name, is broadcast. Yes. We broadcast, and Nicky Mondonco, I'm sure, mentioned it yesterday. There is still huge amount of effect in having a single ad reaching a mass audience all at the same time. And that's what linear TV does so brilliantly. You know, 10 million people in Coronation Street, 8 million people in X Factor. These are massive numbers, and just one ad can really shift the dynamics.
But there are those that say that TV advertising is full of wastage, that you're only reaching, what is it, half the audience that actually wants my product.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So, I can't remember, was it your Lord Unilever or whoever it was, said 50% of my ad budget is wasted, I'm just not sure which 50%. And, you know, there's a great belief that wastage is not wastage. Essentially, if you take an example of BMW, BMW will only really sell to a very upmarket audience. However, their campaigns they put on television aren't necessarily aimed at the audience of buying the car. They're aimed at the audience who look at the car and goes, ooh, he's got a BMW. Yes. So it does a completely different job. That's number one. Number two is that, does wastage really exist? Because people look for pointers around the place. So if you were to go home tonight and you open your fridge, look at all the brands that are in your fridge. They've all been built on wastage. It's enormously effective. And I would argue that those that use data, and only data to target in a very specific manner and say there's no wastage in this, one of the key metrics of data targeting is response. And response rates are 0.01%. That means, to my mind, you're wasting 99.9% of your money. I can tell you exactly how much you're wasting. So I think it's a vacuous argument. You know, people who are in line to buy a coffee machine, yes, you can target them, you can track them across the web, and you can serve them an ad, and they may buy your coffee machine. But there's somebody down the track over here who doesn't need a coffee machine yet, but it's in their subconscious. They might need one in a couple of weeks' time, or a month's time, or a year's time. You want to build up your brand in their eyes and make sure that when they do come to the purchase, they purchase yours. And TV does that brilliantly. As I say, there's not a single brand I can think of that's been built in the online environment, but I can guarantee most of your brands have been built on television.
So your view, there's no wastage. It's all about building up that impression, building up that awareness over decades.
Over decades and decades, yes. I mean, you know, to give you an example, you know, Apple, when it launched the iPod, it did. I don't know, you remember the campaign? It was those lovely white figures on a colourful background. Actually,
white headphones, yeah.
White headphones, exactly. And actually, they spent millions and millions and millions on advertising. In the first instance, they only sold 600,000 iPods. Not a great deal considering the money they spent. However, I would challenge somebody to say that those ads didn't build the Apple brand. And when people came to buy an iPhone or an iPad, they had in the back of their minds that Apple brand that had been built so strongly from a campaign that really only sold very, very small amounts in its initial offering.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think is really important out there is, you know, where we build brands for the future and we strengthen those. And interesting, sorry, bang on about this, our biggest spender on telly not quite our biggest spender, sorry, our third biggest spender on telly last year was Google. Our sixth biggest spender was Facebook.
Yeah, interesting.
You know, our biggest growth category, is online brands. Compare the Market, Confused. These are brands that exist solely in the digital ecosphere, and they're using telly to drive their responses. And there, you know, I think that's testament to how powerful telly is now.
And when Sky wants to introduce a new product, Sky is the UK's biggest advertiser.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Yeah, Sky Q, which you would have seen all over the place. I mean, the truth about that is actually very few people will probably buy Sky Q in its initial offering. Yeah. It's quite complex. I think it's quite expensive. I don't think Sky here will probably argue that, but
they're aiming at a higher premium audience.
They are, but it's building their brand.
Yes.
That's what it's about. It's about making Sky an aspirational brand that people go, actually, I'm really pleased to have that in my sitting room.
We played a theme tune to Downton Abbey at the beginning. Downton Abbey is made by a company called Carnival Films. Yeah. Carnival Films is owned by NBC Universal. It's not part of the ITV Studios portfolio. No. In order for ITV potentially to get some of the payback in terms of building that brand, the Downton brand and ITV internationally, one way might be to launch an SVOD service, maybe, with NBCU, maybe invite the BBC to take part.
Maybe.
Where are you with your SVOD Netflix-killing strategy?
I don't know. Is there anybody from my PR department here?
No, not at all. No, we searched the audience. There's not a single person here from ITV's PR.
I couldn't comment. I really can't make any official comment on other than say what a very good idea.
That's a yes.
No, it's not a yes. It's not. It's really, really, really not a yes. It is a good idea.
It's a good idea.
It is a good idea, and for us, you know, we launched our pay strategy. Our first pay channel was ITV Encore, which was launched on Sky, I think, 2 years ago, and that's been very successful. So pay is certainly something we're looking at here. Look, ITV wants a mixed ecology. We do not want to go back to the days when we joined ITV, we had one single source of income of which we only had a small amount of control over. When we have a mixed ecology, we're able to roll through the highs and lows of the different elements of our income and have a much more robust company. So it's no secret that for us, it's content, it's pay, it's advertising.
It's a true mix, isn't it? Yeah. There is time for a quick audience question, if we have one from the audience to Dags. Does anyone have a question? There is a question over here. It's Daniel from IBM.
Hi, Simon. Daniel Hall from IBM. I'm going to ask a rather open-ended question, which is, as you look internationally in the context of what you've just discussed, what do you find interesting in other markets, and how do you use that to inform how you think about ITV going forward?
It's a really, really good question. And what I find frustrating is where analysts look at the US and say the same that's going to happen in the US is going to happen in the UK. We have a unique market here in the UK in that we have a very, very strong single broadcaster, a commercial broadcaster in us. We have a very strong non-commercial broadcaster in the BBC, and that tends to change the environment. Plus, we are based in free TV here in the main. And so we have a very different ecology to a lot of other places. I think looking overseas, I think it's no secret we've looked at video networks. So some of the stuff ProSieben doing is very, very interesting in terms of providing multi-channel networks in the online environment. That's very interesting to us. And we've also looked at how you produce new technology and new models to distribute your content. So the point is, I think what we're trying to do is pick up the best from around the world rather than emulate a particular country or particular environment, because the UK is so unusual, particularly with regards to the American market or the Asian market.
We're out of time because I know we're running over. Something I didn't mention at the beginning, and this is a very humble chap to the left of me, believe me. He has walked to the North Pole once and to the South Pole twice, all for charity. He's raised £10 million for Help the Heroes. It's an amazing achievement. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you, Dags.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
I'll
hand back to Dave now. Thank you.